Welcome to the Upshot, Ulti-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf worlds. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield on this Wednesday, October 30th, one day before Halloween, All Hallows Eve, spooky season. I'm excited. Josh, we gonna do a little costuming for the little one?
We have a duck snowsuit that he was in last night for a church party. But next year probably he's at the age that he doesn't remember anything. So
of course,
next year he'll probably enjoy it a little more.
It's literally like my mother just needs to have a costume. So Lewis is going to be a lion.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I'm going to wear a safari outfit.
Love it.
As you can tell already, we're in the off season, folks. And this is early off season is always, it's just like everything goes, it feels like everything goes completely dormant. There's nothing happening. Like players are not really doing anything on social media. There's the news is people are really grasping at stories. I mean, it's
yeah.
MVP has a patent on a name of a disc and they're, maybe there's going to be a copyright issue. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't get excited about a copyright, hypothetical copyright issue between MVP and some other small manufacturer. I'm sorry. I can't.
Over the name of a disc.
I can't get excited about that.
Yeah.
Smart on MVP to file a bunch of patents ahead of time and trademarks for, specific disc names in their Simon lineup, and whatever. They can't call it, if they can't call it the balance for whatever reason, will anyone care?
No.
No.
They'll find something else.
Come on. Anyway, I will remind everybody that the off season does get interesting, but it doesn't usually happen until December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy some quiet time.
And the van spottings.
Yep. Yeah. I actually put GPS trackers on all the pros vehicles at Worlds. So
at USDGC, you're just dropping air tags into everybody's vans.
I get 1,000 notifications a day. So we'll see. It's going to be an odd off season, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. We need to do a few things. One is we're going to talk about our ballots for the Disc Golf Pro Tour End-of-Season Awards. Josh and I both got it to make a vote. So we have made our votes, and we're going to discuss them and talk about, where we agree, where we disagree, specifically talking a little bit focused on the FPO Player of the Year race, and get into some of the other ones. I also have an idea for a new award for the Pro Tour that needs to exist.
Okay.
Because I feel like we're missing a thing that I wanted to vote for, but I didn't really have the opportunity to do so. So we'll get into all that. We're also going to take some mail. Remember, you can email us anytime, upshot@ultiworld.com, to send in your mail and thoughts. Just one show again this week. I've been traveling. Josh is out for the second half of this week, so we are going to just do one show. But do we really need a second show this week? If I'm being honest.
Listen, if you're a subscriber, you get a second show.
That's right.
So
sub bonus will be coming for those who are subscribed to Ulti-World Disc Golf, and we'll probably record that live in the Discord sometime in the next 24 hours. Okay, so let's dive into Pro Tour End-of-Season Awards. And we're going to go through them. I think let's go in the order that we did the voting in. How does that sound, Josh?
Yep.
So we begin with Most Improved Player, and we'll start in FPO. So the criteria, I think is fairly straightforward for this one. Which player improved the most from 2023 to 2024? Josh, who'd you vote for?
Yeah, I put Rebecca Cox in this slot.
Yes, sir.
I think it's an obvious choice for me. She really did make some substantial gains. You know who might have been interesting and perhaps fair choice that I didn't consider until just now? Evelina may have been a fair pick getting her first wins. But she's been so good for so long.
Yeah.
And it's not like the putter was completely fixed all season. So Rebecca though is just, I think, the obvious easy answer here for most improved.
I feel like Evelina definitely improved her putting.
Yes.
And, results were a little better, but she also played more events in the U.S., which led to higher finish in the standings.
Yeah.
But like Rebecca Cox went from being a player who was like occasionally on a lead card to being like in the mix at Worlds and stuff. Like, I think I'm just looking up her final results from the season. She went from 29th in 2023 on the tour standings to 11th. Now, there are other players who also made similar jumps. Silva Saarinen went from 39th to 13th.
Number of events on
Annika Sten went from 32nd to 10th. Yes.
Yeah.
The difference is that those players, I actually think Annika Sten has a very good claim to.
I agree with that.
I wouldn't be mad if people voted for Annika Sten for this award. If you look at her ratings, she was 937 rated at the beginning of 2023, and she finished the year 969 rated.
I'd say
that's really good.
That's
So
really
I would have
impressive.
no issues with somebody voting for Anniken. Obviously, she got the win as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're missing an award. I want a Breakout Player of the Year award.
Oh, okay.
To me, that's distinct from Most Improved.
Sure.
Both of my picks for Most Improved were not players who I would have considered breakout players of the season.
Yeah.
And I think there's a case for a few players for breakout. Anniken would be one of them for sure.
I agree with that. When you talk about that, when we move to MPO Most Improved, I actually think my answer would be different for breakout than it was for Most Improved.
My answer
as well.
is 100% different.
Yeah.
Because I want to reward someone who I feel like, maybe they were good, but then they like leveled up a bunch.
Yeah.
And that's different than somebody who's most improved. Like they're slightly different.
Yeah.
And so while I think, for me, Rebecca Cox showed off the most improvement, I don't think she was the breakout player this season.
And I might add, like, if we feel like those two awards are too close, or too redundant,
I think there would be years where they would be the same.
I agree. I prefer Breakout Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Because Most Improved can be a player who still did not matter in the grand scheme of the season.
Right. I think arguably that's Rebecca Cox.
Right.
And arguably it's my MPO player as well, who I will go ahead and reveal right now.
Okay.
I chose Gavin Babcock.
Yep. Did not.
And not to say that either of those players had a bad year or something like that. Not at all.
They had a
Far
very
from
good year,
it.
which is why they're most improved.
But they were not relevant to the storylines of the season in a meaningful way. Rebecca, a little bit at Throw Pink, right? But, they're not winning.
Right.
And so, I wanted to give credit because my first instinct for most improved was really the player that I would wanted to have picked for breakout.
Uh-huh.
For me, that would have been Joey Buckets.
Yep. That's Breakout Player without a doubt.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I don't think he showed as much overall improvement, both whether you want to talk about rating, standings, eye test, all of that, as what we saw from Gavin Babcock this year. So Babcock went from 36th to 14th. Now, technically, Anderson went from 61st to 11th. So if you want to just look at that metric, you could. I'm not going to be mad at anybody if they pick Joey Buckets for this award.
I think.
But he just didn't play as much on tour. So to me, like, the jump is not necessarily as meaningful. Like Gavin's rating, I have it right here. Gavin's rating at the beginning of 2023 was 1016, and now he's rated 1033.
That's a big improvement.
Very big.
Yeah. My pick, I'm giving it to Evan Smith. This is also in part in trying to make up for the neglect that Evan Smith has suffered on this pod and other programs. But he went from June of this year. he went from 1024 rated. Actually, May he was 1023 rated, and he's now in the 1040 club. And so that is, to me, just such a good metric in terms of, because, you know, rating improvement you often expect to see as a correlation of events played to some extent. You play more events, your rating's probably going to go up a decent amount if you weren't playing as much on tour before. To get in the 1040 club means you're playing legit, though. And so, for me, that's why Evan Smith gets the nod for most improved.
He's what a come up he's had. I mean, he would be another player that you could consider for a breakout player award. Sure. I think maybe Anderson gets the nod because he won.
Right.
And I was just thinking a couple days ago about like how crazy when he hit the basket to like almost walk off win it.
Insane.
That was so much fun. Great story and, you know, great year. He cooled off quite a bit there at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Any other notes on MPO most improved? I think once again there's a handful of people you could pick here.
I think so too.
There's a bunch of Europeans you could consider picking.
I think both our picks, though, are reflections of players who didn't just improve because they got to play more events.
Right.
Right. Same thing with FPO. So,
okay, what's next?
We got Rookie of the Year.
All right, FPO. Let's get it out of the way.
All right, Emily Weatherman.
Yes, not much of a question. What a rookie season. We don't usually see him this good.
Only player on the list who had a win, which, you know, I think Emily probably gets the nod anyway, but with the win, just kind of cements it pretty easily.
Blowout.
Yeah. MPO Rookie of the Year. This one I think is a little more interesting. This one was not nearly as obvious. I thought it was significantly more difficult when you compared it. I used the same metric that I kind of assigned with Emily, in the sense that if you get a win, then that, like, winning as a rookie, regardless of the tournament, is incredibly difficult to do. As a result, I give my nod to Jesse Nieminen.
Okay. You want to share a little further thoughts on?
Yeah, there were a handful of Europeans that were included on this list, and I like the opportunity to give one to Europeans who, thanks to the expanded tour, were kind of able to benefit from that. Getting the win at Copenhagen, and especially in the fashion that he did, it really, you know, it wasn't the biggest field, but it still is something that deserves a lot of credit. He also finished higher in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. Now, granted, a win helps that, than a lot of the other candidates. And so he had a couple of top tens. Overall, I mean, there was nobody like Emily Weatherman who you were seeing as consistent, but did, you know, at Turku, for example, got another top 10 and a top 20 at OTB. And so that to me was the win was kind of enough to propel him above some of the other candidates who I just didn't think played quite as much for at least his closest competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was an interesting one. Like, so Nieminen is the technical points leader in the like rookie points standings. They may include that in the criteria for who ends up getting selected.
Maybe.
I actually took who was number 2 on this list, and that's Maudi Vilman. Vilman played significantly less Pro Tour events and maybe only came to the U.S. to play the U.S. DGC, I think.
Except for US DGC, do you want to take a guess how many events he played?
Total number or Pro Tour?
Yeah, total number Pro Tour.
Oh,
sorry, Pro Tour.
Total number of Pro Tour events, probably like 4 or 5.
5. They were all European events, and he only played 5.
Yeah.
But to your point.
Well, and so he's like got a couple podiums at those events. He was top 10 at the European Disc Golf Festival, which was essentially a U.S. Tour level event for MPO.
Don't forget, he was top 10 at European Open.
Right.
Yeah.
And earlier in the season, playing, you know, some of the early European events, he was awesome and like got some wins in Europe. he was very, very, very good. I think if he played as much as Nieminen did on tour, he would have probably easily finished atop these standings.
Without a doubt.
I have no issue with you picking Nieminen. He played in the Pro Tour Championship because he got a win.
Yeah.
So that counts for something. But I felt like Villman on balance was the better overall player this year. So that's my pick.
That's that I think that is fair. I think you just got to play a little bit more to get the vote, in my opinion. But I respect it absolutely. When he did show up, he was great.
Comeback player of the year. The voting was limited on this to, I think they asked tour card holders to vote, and then they gave the top 3 options to media. So the FPO options were Paige Pierce, Evelina Salonen, and Rebecca Cox as comeback player of the year. I picked Paige, but that's because I didn't think that anyone else really came back from anything.
I picked Rebecca because I didn't like any of the choices very much.
Yeah, I mean, Paige got hurt and came back. She did. Won.
She did. I think, yeah, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I didn't love the selection. I do not get the Evelina part. I don't get how she qualifies for comeback player.
Well, I feel like this is coming in as sort of like a who got better award instead of who came back. This is an awkward one because there's not often a clear award winner. I think there is an MPO though. An MPO, I picked Gavin Rathbun.
I also picked Gavin Rathbun.
Do you remember who the other options were?
No, I didn't even.
Eagle.
Okay.
And the third one, I just simply
was
don't
it James
remember.
Proctor?
Maybe. That wouldn't make any sense.
He
came back from his wedding prep. I think Eagle could have been the answer if he played better.
Yep.
But he didn't. And so Gavin actually came back. Gavin was really good, dealt with an injury that made him not very good, and has now come back to being really good again. That is that's definitional. He is
exactly
the only player I really feel like who is a comeback player this year.
Yeah. I think it is spot on. So congratulations, Gavin Rathbun. You are for sure the comeback player of the year.
And finally, we move on to not finally, before we get to player of the year, the last category, which is second and third card all-stars. So the top 4 finishers in the tour standings automatically get an all-star weekend spot. And then there's a voting procedure for the next 8 players for the second and third cards. So let's read off our lists, and then we could talk about them. So Josh, who did you pick for FPO?
Yeah. Okay. Evelina Salonen, Ella Hansen, Henna Blomroos, Rebecca Cox, Silva Saarinen, Annika Sten, Paige Pierce, Kat Merch.
Okay. So I do not have Henna.
Okay.
And in her place, I have Emily Weatherman.
Okay.
I believe you had Annika Sten, right?
I did.
I think otherwise we had the same ballots. So why did you go with the players that you did? Because there's various ways you could vote here. And I think there's lots of valid ways of thinking about an all-star pick. What was your thought process?
Twofold. Number one, I try and reward players who got wins. I'll explain the Emily Weatherman pick and kind of exclusion in just a minute. I try and reward players who get wins. So Annika Sten, for example, Paige. I guess there's 3 things. Wins are an important part. Number 2, players who even think like NBA All-Star voting, even if players aren't necessarily the best in the league at the time, players who are veterans who have long been All-Stars often will get a nod. So Paige Pierce to me is someone who you just have to have included in an All-Star event, even if she didn't have her best season.
For instance, and I didn't do this because it wouldn't have been fair to others, but I shortly considered Katrina Allen for an All-Star vote.
Yeah, exactly, right, and that's exactly kind of my thoughts as well. The final point, though, and the reason I pick Henna over Emily Weatherman, I am picking these players to watch at a doubles match, at a skills contest, and I want to watch players that are exciting.
What a hater.
Emily Weatherman is a very good, balanced player. I want Henna for a doubles team and for a distance contest. Is that selfish of me? Yes, it is. That's honestly what my pick was. I was like, this is the event that Henna can shine, and I want her to be a part of it.
Listen, I basically picked who was really good, and then if you won a tournament, you got a lot of bonus points in my mind. So there are players who had good seasons that I did not vote for. Kyle Klein. I just I know we're not talking MPO yet, but like it's not good enough just to have like accumulated points. I like want to have seen you achieve something like a win on tour. So that's why I voted for Emily. I mean, I just think she kind of earned it.
That's fair.
Here's my MPO list. Isaac Robinson, Ezra Robinson, Anthony Barella, Paul Macbeth, James Proctor, and then here's where it's going to get controversial.
Mine are all the same so far. So
okay.
For reference,
here's my three last ones: Andrew Presnell, Joseph Anderson, Simon Lizotte. Now, once again, what do those players have in common? They all got a tour win.
Yep.
For Presnell and Joey Buckets, it was their first. And I feel like, let's reward players who did something special.
Yep.
Accumulating tour points is not necessarily special. Simon, well, he by like a straight up who had the best season perspective, he doesn't deserve to be on a ballot. But it's an All-Star weekend, and he did get a win, and I want to see him play, so he's there.
That's fair. So Joey Buckets I also had on a lot of the same reasons, like give him his laurels here. I put above, instead of Presnell, and this probably is not fair. I feel like at this point I'm just compensating for feeling like a bad person for neglecting him all season. I put Evan Smith in the All-Star event.
Okay. I mean, where did Evan Smith finish in the Pro Tour standings?
Finished 22nd. Presnell finished 17th. So
okay.
Listen. Where'd Simon finish? I don't want to hear it from you.
Simon was 20th, by the way, 2 spots ahead of Evan Smith.
Shoot, I was looking below. All right. Here's the other thing, though. So Evan Smith had a really pretty poor start to the season through Champions Cup.
Yeah, he cooked at the end of the season, though.
But then he cooked, and I think that's more reflective of like who Evan Smith is as a player now. And he had 4th at D-Glow and 3rd at GMC, and it was enough that I wanted to see Evan Smith more, and I wanted to see him rewarded for that improvement. So Evan Smith got one. And then I did do, if you average out my DGPT standings, I think I come in lower than you because I put Kyle Klein on there. And sure. I see the argument. Kyle Klein has just long been like one of the most consistent players without, and he does win, but not as much as some of the other guys. The other thing that I think is noteworthy is like Chris Dickerson, for example, who did finish 1 spot higher than him, only got to drop 1 event. Kyle Klein dropped several events, all of which had a good number of points to them as well. And so I really think Kyle Klein actually had like the better season, but
yeah, Chris skipped so much of the year.
He just skipped so much. And so I didn't feel like Kyle Klein was boring enough for just accumulating points to justify leaving him off when he is almost 100 points ahead of Joey Buckets, right? Like that line of the top 10 versus below is a big jump. So I give him the reward.
Here's guys who like we both one or both of us snubbed. So Dickerson and Klein. Matty
Matty
O,
O.
Gavin Babcock, Aaron Gossage, Adam Hammis. Those guys are all rated higher than Presnell and Simon. And look, I think there's going to be a decent amount of variability in those final 2 to 3 picks for most voters.
Mm-hmm.
I still think like I don't want to vote for people just because like, oh, they're popular. Like some people do that in all-star voting, but
Sure.
the only one who I feel like I had to reach for was Simon, but he still got a tour win.
He got a win.
And to me, like having a win on your season and finishing 20th is a lot more impressive than having no wins and finishing 15th. I just think like there's a real bonus to getting a victory. And I think that's also reflected in my player of the year voting.
And that's fair.
So we'll see who gets in, you know?
Yeah.
I think like the top people, right? Isaac, Ezra, AB, Macbeth.
That second
Proctor,
card All-Stars?
like that's all pretty much locked in, right?
Done.
Like,
Yep.
and then it's going to come down to voting for the back end. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Got some new Octothorpe colorways dropping this week. Marine and Sage out right now. We've also got some more fanny pack colors. And hey, how about this? Trash Panda ghost stamped a bunch of their discs with the Octagoat graphic from Pound. They've got stock of Ozone, Dune, and Inner Core discs in a couple of colors each, as well as Pound minis. So head over to pounddiscgolf.com and get yourself the finest bag in disc golf. Are you tired of being tired? Are you ready to get 8 hours of unbroken sleep? If you answered yes to either of those questions, today's sponsor may be able to help. Sunset Lake CBD is a hemp farm up in Vermont making CBD products designed to help you get better sleep. Sunset Lake tests every product for potency and purity and puts the results online for all to see. They'll even mail you a copy with your order. That includes all of their nighttime products. Sunset Lake carries gummies, tinctures, and soft gels designed to help you get to sleep gently and naturally. I used the Sunset Lake Sleep Gummies when I was heading out to Australia and back, and a little bit of melatonin in there, plus the CBD, helped me get to sleep, stay asleep, and get right through the jet lag, no issues, even if I had to rock the sunglasses sometimes on the pod. So check it out. If you're having trouble sleeping through the night, try out the Sunset Lake Sleep Gummies or their other sleep products, and get 20% off all orders. Just go to sunsetlakecbd.com and use code UPSHOT at checkout. Sleep sounds knowing that they stand behind their products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. Okay, let's do MPO Player of the Year race first. There's less to say here, but we are going to we had the big top 5.
Yes. And we have to, well, we're given the top 5 and we have to, or do we,
No.
Are we, no, we're not. We
You
just
fully
pick.
pick. Yeah, you fully pick.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah. You
I
can
feel like
pick
the
whoever
top
you
5
want.
is obvious here.
Well, yeah, I do too. But the question is, what's the order?
Correct.
So my order was first place, Gannon Burr, of course. Second place, Ricky Wysocki, of course. And now we discuss.
Now we discuss.
I have third place, Anthony Barella. Fourth place, Isaac Robinson. Fifth place, Calvin Heimberg.
Okay.
So go ahead. You give us yours.
Yeah, I'll give you mine. Third place, Isaac Robinson. Fourth place, Anthony Barella. Fifth place, Calvin Heimberg.
Okay. So here's my thought process.
Yep.
4 wins for AB and capping it off with a strong performance at USDGC outweighs the bad weeks by enough to catapult him up in front of those other 2 guys. Like, if you're being like, okay, the Worlds thing is always going to make it tricky. But I was thinking to myself, would I rather have had AB's season or Calvin's season? Calvin, clearly the more consistent player. Clearly the more week in, week out guy finishing in the top 5, in the top 10 all the time. AB had weeks where he was 50th, 60th,
Sure.
like slump. But I would rather have a streaky guy who wins a bunch than someone who's kind of just punching their card week in, week out. Now, I don't want to take away from Calvin because he's a great player, but I just 4 wins. Like for the first half of the season, AB was the player of the year.
Yep.
And to me, that's enough to put him third on this ballot. I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to leave him off of their top 5. I will be curious to see where he finishes when it's all said and done with the voting. Because you have Isaac, who had...
I do have Isaac.
Didn't he just have the 1 win?
He only had the 1 win.
Worlds. And
Correct.
Of course, if we do the same comparison, would you rather have Isaac's season or AB's? I think a lot of people could argue that you'd rather have the World season, but I actually don't know that I would agree. I think 4 tour wins and stretch of dominance like he had at the beginning of the year is more impressive than what Isaac did.
Let me give you a different contextualization, because we often say, how much is a World's worth in this kind of metric here?
Didn't Isaac say 10?
I think so.
He came on this pod and said 10 victories of
I don't know about that.
Ones.
But I think we usually settle somewhere between like the 2.5 to 3 number, right? Is kind of where we usually consider it. Here's the problem, though. This isn't just a World's win for Isaac. It is a back-to-back World's win for Isaac. It makes him a 2-times world winner. It is a feat that very few people in the history of disc golf have ever done. And he's got the consistency to back up and be ahead of AB. He finished higher than him in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. He had a better average finish. He had a better average event rating. He had more top 10 finishes. And so he's got enough around him, especially thanks to a strong end of the season. And AB was just all over the place enough that I'm willing to reward what really was a historic feat from Isaac and give him the 3rd place nod. Honestly, it might be overinflating that World's win just a little bit. If it was his first, if he only won Worlds and didn't win it last year, I would have put Anthony Barella above Isaac. It's the fact that it's the back-to-back of the 2 times that for me is enough of a special event, especially in MPO, that I elevate Isaac up to the 3rd spot. It was a coin toss between those 2 for me, though. It was so close.
Is there a case for Calvin to be 3rd?
I don't think so, because he does have some consistency, but it's not so...
More wins than Isaac.
Yeah, that's true.
Finished higher in the Pro Tour standings. Had a higher average finish. Had a higher average event rating. Had a better worse finish. Had more podium finishes. Had more top 10 finishes. Made more money.
He doesn't win enough, man. And listen, we overlooked that last season because he finished an average place of 3rd.
Right.
This season, he finished an average place of 12th, which is still great, but with only 2 wins, I mean, you just can't... You either need to win a major or you need to win like AB did. And unfortunately, I think both Isaac and AB, if you offered them Calvin's season, neither of them would take it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, shout out to Rick, though, by the way.
Yes.
How old is Ricky?
Is he 31?
We're gonna hit the
3-year-old age tracker.
The age tracker article. We got the updated 2024 edition.
Okay.
Ricky is 31 or turns 31 this year. For context, Macbeth is 34. Macbeth, obviously greatest player of a generation, maybe greatest player of all time. And his level of performance, while still solid, he still had a good year by most tour player standards. He's not even in the same stratosphere as Rick anymore. Ricky's ability to continue to compete at the highest level. I mean, he was, without Gannon in the field, Ricky has a monster season.
Yep.
And he still had a really good season despite that. I just think it's really impressive at age 31 to be playing as well as he is. I think this is his best year since pre-COVID.
Oh, 1,000%. Yes, I completely agree.
Very cool. I really hope nobody spazzes out and puts AB in front of Ricky because he had one more win.
That is not.
I think it could happen.
It's not fair.
Listen to this, right? So Ricky had 3 wins.
Yeah.
His average finish was 5.3 to Gannon's 4.2. His average event rating was over 1050. He had more. He podiumed at 59% of his events which is better than even Gannon. I don't think anybody's questioning that Gannon's number one. That's not even in the conversation. But Ricky was a very formidable second place finisher this year.
Yes, he absolutely was.
Like, do you take Ricky's season this year over Isaac or Calvin's last year?
Listen, no, world's man.
But I think, didn't you end up agreeing that Calvin was number one last year?
Yeah, that's because I'm pretty sure. That's because, have you ever seen, Charlie, do you know the really old Robin Hood movie, the Disney version with like the fox?
Sure.
And you know when Little John is holding or not little, it's little, what's his name? The bear.
I don't remember it that well.
So Prince John is the lion and he's being held on the stand. Is it little?
The bear in Robin Hood is called Little John.
I was right. Okay. Yeah. Little John is holding Prince John like behind the stage by his collar with a knife to his throat. And he's like, declare Robin Hood the winner. Like that's what happened to me last season. I still go back and forth, especially because like everyone's like, wow, Calvin did something that maybe's never been done. And then Gannon comes out and does it, but better. And now I'm like, man, maybe I should have just given it to Isaac like I wanted to. 2 majors, man. Anyways, worlds, right? And Ricky, you know, I'd value consistency over majors. He's a liar. I don't believe him. Winning worlds is just a big deal. And don't get me wrong, Ricky, monster season. You're right. He absolutely did. I definitely take Ricky's season this year over Calvin's season last year. But then you get the tricky part of like, you know, winning worlds and what that does for players. So
it's interesting. It's interesting. 2 tremendous performances at the top of the leaderboard this year. All right, FPO. This is the one we've been waiting to discuss. Josh, I will let you read off your list. I think the 5 players are not in question.
Agreed.
Once again, it's about the order.
I did decide to give the nod to Kristen in first place, Evelina in second, Missy gets third, Holland is fourth, Owen is fifth. Go ahead and give your list, and then we can.
Who did you have third?
I had Missy in third,
and then Holland and Owen.
Yes.
Then we have the exact same list.
Okay.
Kristen, Evelina, Missy, Holland, Owen. Well, let's talk about it. Because I feel like you were really, really close to wanting to give it to Evelina.
I was. So Kristen finishes with a total of 7 wins?
6 wins.
Does that include Throw Pink?
Probably not.
That's kind of what I'm assuming.
Yeah. I'd have to go Statmando hunt it. I think that was her 7th.
So, listen, Evelina wins Worlds. Evelina wins Champions Cup.
It was her 7th. Just confirm.
Okay. She gets 2 majors. It was so hard. It was so hard because I do value Worlds so much. But Kristen still wins. You know, I don't know where you put European Open in terms of importance on FPO majors. It might be second, it might be third, and then the 5th most important event in the Throw Pink. Arguably, at times, that one is considered more prestigious than U.S. Women's. Like, if you made the case to me that Throw Pink should be the 4th most important tournament on the FPO schedule, I would not argue with you about that. So she wins both of those. So maybe not as important of majors as Evelina, but what feel like, the same number of majors. And at that point, Kristen just blows Evelina out in every other stat. She has 5-2 in terms of Elite Series victories. Also, one of Evelina's wins was Copenhagen, that just was such a weak field compared to Kristen's wins.
Yep.
3rd to 5th, average finish 2.6 to 4.5. Average event rating 996 to 980. Podiums 80% for Kristen to 47% of Evelina. Top 10 finishes. Kristen didn't miss it. 100%. Evelina, 94%. She earned more money. Kristen earned more money in less events played. I want to give Evelina more credit for Worlds, but Kristen with a major and a pseudo major, almost matches it, and then just blows everything else out of the water. I want to reward the Worlds, but Kristen had too strong of a finish to the season.
I think you have to be feeling fatigue to not acknowledge this clear and obvious fact that Kristen had the best year.
Yeah.
I don't think this is obviously this is not 2023. This is not a story season for the ages type of season.
Correct.
But there's the on. The fact is Kristen still dominated these players most of the time.
Yep.
Kristen, I just looked it up, was 10-4 head-to-head with Evelina at tournaments this season. Like, that alone is enough.
Yeah.
And the disparity in many of these statistics is huge. If Kristen had played the whole season and played all the events, there wouldn't be a contest because she would have had 3 or 4 more wins.
That's exactly right.
Now, it is completely legitimate to knock Kristen for not playing more. I don't think it's so far massively in Kristen's favor that if somebody did vote for one of Evelina or Missy over Kristen, that I would be like, you should lose your voting privileges. But I do think it's like, if you actually sit down and you look at it, it's hard to really justify, especially if you consider Throw Pink a major, which you basically should. I just think like Kristen's just still too dominant, too good. It was a weird year because she kept having these awful rounds, but she often overcame that and still won. And that means that, to me, it's pretty easy. I didn't have to think about it too long. Let me put it that way.
I don't think it's quite lose your voting privileges egregious, but I don't know how you pick Missy over Kristen. Evelina, you can squint and make the case with the second major, but they have the same number of wins, except Kristen has, the better average finish by Missy, 2.5 places.
Here's the argument, right? Missy had 6 wins.
Kristen had 7.
Well, right.
Both
Missy
have one major.
First in the Pro Tour standings.
She played 7 more events than Kristen.
Well, part of being a great player is showing up.
Kristen broke her rib.
Don't give me her broke her rib. She was already going to skip most of that chunk of the season. Missy played the most events. Missy made the most money.
By $2,000 by playing.
I understand.
In 7 events, she made $2,000 more than Kristen did.
She won the Pro Tour Championship. Like, it's not like Missy and had the iconic win over Kristen to win the Pro Tour standings at MVP head-to-head.
What was Missy and Kristen's head-to-head this season?
I don't think
because if
you
I
want to know.
recall, 10-4 Evelina Kristen or Kristen Evelina was enough to be.
It is also 10-4 in the Missy battle.
I think your words were that should be enough to do it right there.
I mean, it is enough to do it. Like, I'm not actually advocating for Missy, but I'm saying that there's a case. Interesting note: 4 of Missy's wins came with Kristen in the field. In the win count, when those two players were together at a tournament, 5 wins for Kristen, 4 wins for Missy.
I think that you can squint with Worlds for Evelina, and I can't do it for Missy.
Yeah, I get it. The Pro Tour Championship isn't worth enough.
It's not.
It's just not. But great season. We both had Missy third behind Evelina. Is there a case for Missy to be second in front of Evelina?
There is. Now that we talk more about it, there definitely is. I still give a little bit more value to the Worlds, though.
Yeah, I think 2 major wins,
exactly.
plus one of them being Worlds, is pretty huge. But Missy finished so strong.
She did.
That I would definitely not have a problem with anybody picking Missy over Evelina for the 2 spot.
Me neither. Completely fine with me.
Very interesting year overall. Are there any other things that they should add to the voting categories?
Yes, there's one. I think they should give an award, and maybe it would be too hard to separate from like the drama. but I think they should allow voting on Tournament of the Year.
Oh, interesting.
And give a trophy to the TD who runs it.
Now, how do you mean, I guess? Like, what's the
Right.
criteria? Because is it like most exciting event for fans, or is it like this was the best run tournament?
I think
like,
you
it's
make
kind
it
of hard to...
I think you make it a 50-50 vote. Or maybe you give like
Maybe you let the players vote,
a player's vote
and
for
then you
best
let
tournament.
the fans vote, and it's 50-50 split.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
I like that.
And the players are like explicitly instructed to evaluate things like facilities, staff, volunteers, course markings,
And
the
maybe
course
including
design.
like competitive quality.
And agreed. And then, fans are probably going to lean towards what was an exciting finish, but I don't have a problem saying, like, listen, I don't think Des Moines should probably win this this award at the end of the day. Like, they do a great job, but you do need some excitement as well to kind of pair with that, and a strong field and competitive excitement is good. And Des Moines really is very well run.
What's your answer?
This is why everyone else has to vote on it, Charlie.
I think there's a pretty good case for USDGC and Throw Pink.
Sure. That one's always going to be in contention, I think.
Always.
Always.
I think
I'm
there's a pretty good
trying.
case for European Open.
I was about to say, I think European Open would probably be my answer. They incorporate the new second course that I think was really well received. It was very competitive. European Open always, I think, does a pretty good job of treating players well, and then they had excellent spectators. As usual. So I think European Open is probably my nod. And maybe we need to exclude the majors. Maybe this is designed to reward a Pro Tour event.
I could see that too.
Right? So if you exclude the majors, I think
the majors are going to kind of dominate, I suppose.
They are. I think chess.com has a really strong argument. It was pretty exciting. It's a new course, a new venue, and I think they did a really nice job with it, especially with kind of like some of the off-course activities. So I think chess.com gets a really strong argument for a DGPT event.
For Pro Tours, Idlewild pretty good. I'm trying to think what else like really stood out. I have a hard time remembering what happened earlier. Oh, Beaver State was pretty good.
Beaver State was good.
Did
Holland.
Gannon dominate on that side? I mean, obviously it was very exciting in the FPO.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I feel like Gannon won by like 8 strokes or something. What else did we have earlier in the year? I feel like a lot of kind of I think I'll say Idlewild, but I'm probably biased because I was on the call for that tournament, so I watched every minute of it. It was just a lot of fun watching the course and Joey Buckets particularly. All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Upshot. We will be back with subscribers for our sub bonus segment in the next day. So join us for that. Go to discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe to sign up for less than $4 a month. And excited to get into our off-season topics. We're doing some mailbag, probably a little bit potentially on the sub bonus, but also on next week's Tuesday show. So join us for that. Get your mailbag questions in to upshot@ultiworld.com. And more to come on the Upshot, including some excellent interviews coming your way very soon. So for Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we will talk to you next week right here on the Upshot.